here to
No
give you
worries.
some real good insights on polls. And just to cover it, the algorithm does favor polls. They can be used for business development. The key is to identify pain points and also to cherry pick who you want to respond, and then take what you got from it and provide some insights through content, and then ultimately use it to activate conversations. So if I talk fast, it's because I've had 3 cups of coffee and I'm a New Yorker. So just slow me down. All right. So there's really the 7 stages. Is this 7? Yeah. So always, regardless, start with a strategy. Do not do a poll for poll's sake, because those are the ones that are just like frivolous and piss people off. So what do you want to get out of it? That's the key thing. And then that question really comes to, we get into pain point. I'll dive into that in a second here, but, formulate your question really thoughtfully. And then you're going to launch the campaign. Then there's going to be engagement in the campaign. Then you're going to have results, and then you're going to have an analysis, and then you're going to have follow-up. So if you close the loop, this is the 7 stages of an effective poll campaign. Okay. So
that's amazing, Judy. That's amazing.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
That workflow is amazing.
I did actually a chart, but I didn't want to we will do that another time. Okay, so how come the algorithm likes them? Why are these things showing up? Well, first of all, it's very easy to create, right? So it doesn't require you to be a writer or anything. It's very easy to engage with. All you have to do is click, right? It's built into the platform. And every time somebody engages, it sends it out even further. So that's why the algorithm is liking it. The rumor is, I can't base it on any fact, but that LinkedIn is at some point going to monetize it in their marketing solutions platform. So, okay. The key here is pain points. And this is, the way I've been trained to use LinkedIn is really don't lead with your solution, but identify what problems lead to your solution, right? So that's like a simple social selling method is if you go in selling, you turn people off. But if you identify the problems, the pains that your audience is having, your prospects, and how that leads to your solution, and I have some case studies to demonstrate this, you will actually have an effective use of the poll. And use the polls to get at the root cause of a problem. So a client may have a problem, but why is that a problem? What is the root cause? And I have an example of one poll that we did that actually the results surprised my client. It was like, wow, okay. And then use it to uncover some core issues that, again, lead to your solution. And then also use it to address things that are relevant and timely. Okay, it could be trends. It could be something that you're thinking about. Okay, so when we talk about using polls to develop business, when I think of developing business is getting in conversations with ideal prospects. Now, those prospects could be referral partners, they could be clients, former clients, they could be people that we haven't done business with yet that we want to talk to. So think of using polls with that in mind. So, what you have to do is really make sure that you're using polls either to confirm or challenge what you think, and I'm saying LinkedIn network because sometimes there's other people that get involved in it, but either confirm or challenge what you think is a pain point. You can use it to identify knowledge gaps, you can research trends, you can connect with relevant targets, and you can engage with your audience. So what I like to do with polls, and this is where people get a little bit, well, I had 7,000 votes, doesn't matter. It's like having followers, that are like not your target. Focus on quality, not quantity. So when you are doing a poll, like I have my client, one particular client has different verticals that he's working with or they are working with. And so we think about, okay, this particular poll is going to be for physical security directors. This particular poll is going to be for facility managers. And then the question is formulated to that target and we call out that target in the poll. And then we do the outreach to that target. So what we'll do is, where do we go? We'll use the tool in Sales Navigators to create a list, to identify those people, and then we will invite them directly from the poll. And that is really, really key, is if you click on the poll, and does everyone know how to do that directly from a poll? Because there's a send little button there. And what you do is you do that and you type in their name, and it actually makes it very easy for them just to click on it. And I have found, and this is from direct response marketing, use a benchmark of 20%. Okay, so figure if you're going to message 100 people, you're going to get 20 respondents. You could get more, you could get less. Has to do with when you're doing it, the timing, and the question. So now once you've got the data, what do you do with it? You're going to analyze it. Did it confirm what you thought? Did it challenge what you thought? Who responded to it? Did my targets respond? Are these people that surprised me? Are these vendors? Are these end users? Who is it that responded? Have some kind of tracking system. Sales Navigator is okay, but I tend to use like Google Sheets or something like that, so I can then take it off and really massage the data. And then reach out to people, always thanking them. Acknowledge, hey, thanks for participating in the poll. Maybe you can get a soundbite, maybe you can get a quote. Again, activating conversations. And then turn the poll into an article and report, and use created branded graphics, to show the results of the poll. So, you see all these polls, how many times do you actually see the results, right? Nobody ever puts the results out there. So this is taking it full circle, okay? So the next thing is, how do you activate the conversations? This is where the direct outreach, when somebody responds, what's happening is you're creating a relevance. Remember point of relevance in the algorithm? So now that you've messaged them to invite them to participate in the poll, even if they don't respond, that has created some kind of relevance. So then you have more likelihood of showing up in their newsfeed. Always acknowledge, and then take it a step further and post it on LinkedIn. If you don't have a blog, use the LinkedIn article platform. I generally will post the results on a blog and then pull in sound bites and short snippets onto LinkedIn. You can share it on your other social media platforms, and then you could mine data. And I do this is kind of a fun thing, and I have in the hacks at the end, is I look at polls all the time, and I'm mining data. I'm looking at the comments, seeing who's commenting, what they're saying. There's all kinds of opportunities there. Okay, any questions so far? You guys cool? Okay, so what do I mean by pain points? These are examples of pain point polls, and I hope you can see this. Is this too tiny for our weary eyes? So for this particular client, what they do is they implement transportation management systems for large shippers. So we're talking like the Home Depots of the world, all the freight and all the product that goes all over the world. They work on the technology side. Okay, so there's a lot of issues here that we want to get to the core of. For instance, when doing an implementation, which stakeholder poses the most challenge? What was interesting here is my client thought it was going to be the IS team that was going to be the biggest roadblock, and it turned out to be leadership. So we put together an article about that, but that was a real aha moment. Shipper of choice. That's a term where, there's preferential treatment and terms for specific shippers that handle your freight. It was kind of an even split, but we got a lot of feedback on that one. And so we were able to activate conversations. The one I'm going to show you in depth here is, the one, how satisfied are you with the current operations of your transportation system? And so people that said, I don't have it, or I'm not satisfied, or meh, those are all prospects. Those are all really good conversations, okay? So let me take you through a few case studies. So that particular poll, this is what we did with it. So, and this is the end result, and I'll take you through the steps here, but this was, this is their brand and their website. And we went into it and really, started out with, let me give you a little background. Here's about transportation management systems. Let me pull in some quantitative research. Here's some data. And then let me get into the survey. And then there it is. There's a LinkedIn poll. And again, we created the branded graphics. How satisfied are you? So then what we did was we took it a step further, and we looked at each of those groups, and we made recommendations and observations. So of the group that's not satisfied, we made some observations. We gave them a recommendation they can do themselves. And then we gave them a recommendation that is a call to action. Okay, so there's the business development. This is the gold in using the polls. Same thing here, the meh goes through. And here was the actual poll. And again, we don't have a huge amount of people responding on these, but the ones that do are highly targeted. These are the exact, because we actually messaged them directly and said, hey, invite you to participate in this easy poll, or this quick poll. So these are the ones like, wow, so it was really revealing, but that's what it is. So when you're doing polls, don't get so caught up in, oh, I need to get a lot of votes, because that's not it. That's not the point. Here's another one, shipper of choice. This one we did get a fairly large response to, but again, we pulled out some quotes, that people were saying. So quotes from the comments. Then the survey says, it looks familiar to you guys? We took it a step further, and we looked at the verticals or the roles of the people that responded, okay? A little bit deeper. So When the people that were saying it doesn't exist anymore, here's their roles: shippers, carriers, consultants, vendors. And the people said, no, it's not dead. Again, more information. And then here's some things, that you can do, some tips. We always like to give action items. So does this make sense so far, everyone?
It's so awesome, Judy.
Okay, so I'm going to give you one more. I'll give you two more, and then you can say, all right, enough of these. Again, and I always reference the poll. Okay, this is the roadblocks. Remember, I told you, we thought it was going to be the IS team. Well, it turned out to be leadership. And so then we said that, and we said, you know what? It really surprised us. I expected the IS team or the vendor to rank much higher. So then here, simple things you can do. These are what the executives can do. Here's how they can be more engaged again and again. Okay. And the last one is driving value in your transportation management system. So again, you kind of get, there's a methodology. It's like a blueprint that I've created here, which I'm now using with some other clients. But again, put the poll in there, the graphic, the results, and that's it. So let me give you some hacks. Okay. First of all, you can create, and I think you can see my links here. I created a bookmark here. I'm starting to save all these polls. Okay. So create some kind of bookmark to the actual poll. Make sure you're pulling the poll in. Okay. And why? Because I want to go back and look at the comments that people have added. And I want to look at the end results because I can create content from that. So there's like proprietary data that's out there, that people have, or quantitative data that people have voted in, and then there's comments. And then I can connect with those people. Mine the comments for opportunities. Focus on quality. Hashtags are good. What I typically do is one brand, so whatever the client brand is, poll, so it's like poll of the week or poll, and then the topic, whatever the topic is that we're polling. And then, by the way, you can always, there's some ridiculous polls out there, and there's some interesting ones. I will always vote and then undo it because I want to see where it's going, so I'll do the vote and then undo it. Don't engage in these frivolous polls because that only fuels the fire, and there's a lot of them out there. Although there is one funny one I think I brought up last week, which was who likes chicken, and there was like 4 votes of chicken. String did that anyway. And then always start with a strategy, so have a purpose for why you're doing this poll, and then take it full circle. And that's it.
Judy,
well done.
So fantastic. Yeah.
This is the difference, Judy, between taking a paintbrush and handing it to somebody who just has an interest in painting and giving it to a professional artist to paint a mural, right? I mean, to be able to have a strategy for one particular piece of content like this, most people don't even get past going back and telling the people who voted what the results of the poll were.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I mean, they just put these polls out there and they just die.
Yep.
Well done.
Also, I was going to say, I typically do a 2-week duration because it does take time to get through the feed. And I also have found, particularly with a couple of the industries I'm working with right now, that Friday afternoon is a good launch because over the weekend, it seems that people just have the time to go through and check their feed and stuff like that. So think about your timing and think about duration. That I usually do Fridays and towards late afternoon, and I'll do about 2 weeks.
Awesome. So let's
Great.
move into panelist Q&A. So if anyone has a question for Judy, panelists, just jump on. And then after this here for about 10, 15 minutes, we'll jump into open Q&A. Can I start with one, Judy?
Yes, please.
Have you ever asked the same question in different ways with different polls to see if the results varied?
What we're doing is we're diving deeper. So no, we haven't done that specifically, but I think that's a great strategy because again, remember the feed, typically the first, reach is 10% of your network, and then depending upon who engages, it's going to go further. So yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. We tend to dive deeper. So let's deal with that pain point and then let's go a little deeper. Now that we've gotten that information, take it a step further. So, but I think doing that, what you said, could be very interesting.
Yeah, I could see just learning about which words your audience are more drawn to engage with. If you can, yeah, it's very insightful.
And I think also sometimes you have to frame the positioning of the question, and that's where you can use the comment section, because you are constrained in the poll with 120 characters, including spaces for that question. So, and punctuation, 120 characters, and then you can only have 4 choices, and each choice is limited to 30 characters. So if you have more than that and you need more of that, then what I do is I make it so I use little fingers or something and say, read above for description or before you vote. People don't pay attention, but at least you can put it there.
Judy, if you are able, can you jump into just a sample poll just to create one to show people?
Yes.
The questions come up a number of times where you message and add people to the poll that you want to tag.
Yeah. So what I would do here, this is not my poll, but if I wanted to do this, actually, I think I just set one up for Monty. Did I just do one for Monty here?
You said, yeah, I got one from you this morning. I was wondering if you were going to maybe do screen share.
So this is what I did. So I went in here and I said, so here's the poll, and it's still active. And Bryn and I, by the way, are testing this. She's running it and I'm running it. We did it exactly the same time. And it's interesting to see how it's taken off. So what you do is when you launch your poll, again, make sure you know who you want to reach out to. So you're not just putting it out there. We go on send, and I'm going to type in the name now. And I'm going to bring this up and I'm going to say, okay, I want to send this to, and I only do one at a time because you don't want like group messages going out to the poll. So I'm going to go Monty Clark, and then I bring it up again and say, and I usually, I always greet people. Hi, Monty. Would love, would love. Okay. would love your, if I could type, love your love.
Yeah. Hey, I got it. I'll give you a love.
Yeah. And then
don't send it yet.
No.
Don't send it yet. I want to point something out. So, you can drop the link for a poll in and it'll drop it down like that. But going through the process that you just showed, it looks more clean because you don't have the clutter of the HTML link in there. So it looks a lot better.
And here's the difference. When you drop a link in a message, the person has to click to that post. When you do it from the poll, they can vote right in the poll. So that's why it takes more time, but it's easier. If you're saying, hey, I want this one-click poll, you got to do it this way. So it is a one-click. But if you send them the HTML link or whatever it is, the URL link, then they actually go out of that message to that. And, people get distracted. They forget, or it's like, oh, okay. So that's why I'm doing. So let me try it both ways. Let me do it that way. Okay. And then so you can say, we can look at it on the other end. What's up with the internet?
I think you can just go up there and cut paste the URL.
Now I'm going to go and I'm going to take it here and I'm going to copy a link to the post. I'm going to go in messaging. And now I'm going to say Monty. Okay, Monty. And I'm just going to put that in like that and send that to you. Okay, so now when you click on it, it's actually going to take you out to the poll versus when you do it the first way, the send from the poll, it's going to, which one was it there? Can you see the difference, Monty? So is this one, you can't vote in the poll, and it's not, what I'm doing here is different because it's from my account, so that's why you're not seeing it. Somebody asked about the bookmarks. I use Chrome desktop. And if you don't have the ability to do that, another thing you can do is if you go on your profile, if you go to your home here, my items, you can save things. So unfortunately, I've abused this and I have like several thousand things saved. But now I'm going through and I'm looking at them, and when I look at them, then I can, pull them back in. So what I'll do is like this one, I want to get this password one, and I'll make sure, okay, this is this actual, copy a link to the post, I'll make sure I put it there. And then what I'll do is I'll bookmark it. So make sure you have the actual post, otherwise you're going to get like their feed. And then I'll go here and I'll add it, bookmark, and I'll put it in my polls folder. Okay. So this way, it's an easy way to now for me to go back, and find them.
What do you say to people that are just posting every day, writing their, content, and then applying a poll to it?
You mean like this?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, they're going for that. It's clickbait. It's just, there's nothing short of it being clickbait. That's all it is. People gonna do it. That's what they do. I think if you are using LinkedIn for business development, then being strategic is going to get you better results than just clickbait. Clickbait is like, okay, so there she is again doing another, frivolous poll.
Yep.
And people might vote on it, they might not. I like to read the comments. I like to see, what people say. I mean, not on things like this, but on things that are a little more relevant. Like, there was some interesting polls I saw here. How are you spending time on LinkedIn? That was interesting. And that could lead to, and this is the one Bryn and I did together. And now she's got 689 votes. So you can tell her network is definitely more engaged than my network. But this is really interesting. So here's what I do is this way you can see, if you click on it, you can see where people, and both of us are getting the same results, believe it or not, even though I have a much smaller audience. And then you go undo, so I like to do that to see which one, because I don't like to engage too much on polls, because then I think you're going to get more of them.
Yep. You will.
Yeah. So, but good question.
Judy, could I ask a question? Sorry, I think this is great because you've really opened my eyes to polls, because I was just like, oh, polls, hate them because I try to avoid them so much. But I love what you're doing with them, and that's just brilliant. I just wanted to just confirm about your handpicking participants.
Yes.
So I really get that you've got your sales navigator, you know who you want to send it to. So when you're saying handpicking, it's all about just direct messaging the right people, because I'm assuming essentially anybody could vote if they see it on your newsfeed.
Yeah, anybody can vote, and that does come in. But if I'm looking for, this is business development, like for my physical security client, what I did was I looked for facility directors in certain verticals. We had, maybe 6 verticals that we were targeting. Could be banks, commercial real estate, whatever. And we then identified them, so they would be the end user. Right. And then we direct message them. Now, we did get a few vendors that participated. So, we just factor that in. That's why I say analyze the data. So, I put it in a spreadsheet, and then I'm categorizing their industry so I could exclude those if I really want to, get into the granular. Yeah.
So how many, so you sent 9 to 6 in one session. So you would just direct message over a period of time, all that were relevant.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's something, that it's kind of a you can use text expander or whatever to do that, yes. Right? I mean, it's just, again, I'm trying to get some engagement, and I find that,
the right
people definitely are more likely to respond if you let them know what you want them to do. I'll give you an example. I have a client that works with manufacturers and helps get them into big box retail. Okay, so he works with the makers and gets them into, like, Michaels and things like that. It's in the craft industry. Mm-hmm. So back before COVID, trade shows were pretty big, but there was some talk that it's kind of, diminishing. People are not seeing a return on their investment. So we just asked a simple question: are trade shows relevant? Yes, no. Okay. We then took those answers and then reached back out and asked for, we said, and we did, we said, we're writing an article, you said they're not relevant. Would you mind, diving a little deeper, either in a conversation or just responding? And so they did. And we created content around that. We put a lot of data into it. And then what we did was we actually got some nice quotes. So we had some great graphics. And 2 of those respondents out of all of them became clients.
Excellent. That's brilliant, Judy. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can show you that particular campaign. But that was before polls were launched. So we were kind of doing something that was a little bit pre-poll, I guess, if you will. We do some things for fun, but it was back here. Hang on a second. I do a lot of crowdsourcing of content that way. So our trade show is still relevant. So this was it. And this was in 2019. There was a third-party tool that you could use for polls. So, and I like to bring in data. When I have a question, I want to make sure I'm doing the research and giving people some value. So I went right to, is it worth it? We pulled in some data points, sourcing things. What are the decision factors? Boom, 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 lots of meat in this and lots of tidbits to share. And then we went into the pros. So these were the comments that we got from all the people that were.
Oh, great.
And again, sound bites to share. Cons. These are why they didn't think they were relevant. And then the experts say, and then we created this little PowerPoint that and then these were the ones where they gave us really good quotes. 2 of these became clients. And then we gave them recipes for success. and then further reading from our resource, and then about the company. So this is, again, taking it full circle. So if you do a yes or no, then write an article about it. Again, hit that pain point. What is the pain point? Are lawyers, like with lawyers, are they coming up with subscription services versus, on demand when they have a crisis? Something like that.
I mean, that's absolutely brilliant. I love how deep you went with just the binary, the simple binary to start with, but then you went way deeper and added a lot of value on your own, which does take some time, unless you have a brilliant VA.
And we did with COVID, right? We said, oh no, we went then further and went back to them and said, hey, now that things are virtual, what do you think about virtual versus real? Where are we at in the industry? So again, it positioned my client to become a real thought leader or subject, leading out there where people are saying, oh, wow, you really, have your pulse on what's happening in the industry. And so
it's nice psychologically. I mean, that's brilliant too, because it makes them not yet a client. It makes them feel extremely special, like they actually have something to offer. So you're putting them in the spotlight where, it strokes their ego a bit. And then you have a really good relationship back and forth. I mean, you're getting value, but you're also giving them the opportunity to shine a bit. That's brilliant.
Now, Judy,
we made a carousel post out of this. So each one was a carousel swipe. I mean, there's so much content that came from this. So think of this as your pillar, your turkey. This became our turkey content that we sliced a whole bunch of stuff at. And it's still relevant, even, in as we're going back to trade shows now. And for another conversation, we can talk about this. And this is like crowdsourcing. What I did was my client wanted to create a podcast. And I said, you know what, there's a lot of podcasts out there. So let's put a list. What are there, 10 podcasts out there? Turns out there were 30. Right. And I did the list and I strategically tagged the various hosts and mentioned something that we liked about their podcast. They were all over it. They asked, how do we get on the list? I did an updated list. Now there's 60. The result of that is my client then has been invited on other people's podcasts. So it's become a way of, using content strategically. And we can talk about the crowdsourcing at another time. But again, everything that I do is there has to be a goal, a strategy. And it all goes down to getting my clients in meaningful conversations with their ideal prospects. What solutions do you provide? Okay, good. That's what you offer. What is the pain or the problem that your prospects are feeling at the point where they need to get somebody that does what you do? And sometimes you have to go through the 5 whys. Why is that a problem? Why are they having this? And that's where the root cause, and there's a book, Gap Selling, what's his name? Keenan wrote, and I love it because he's got the methodology. Oh, can you see this? Gap Selling. My background is a little
because fuzzy. Your face is in there too.
Yeah. But Gap Selling is a really good book about bridging that gap. And that's where I use content as a way to make that bridge, because on LinkedIn, it's gone from a job site to a lead generation site, now to a content creator site. So if you can think about, the content that you're creating, you don't have to be a writer. You just have to be very clear on what it is, the problem that you are solving, and then provide the insights and educate, inform, and delight your audience, and use content for that.
Judy Ildiko asked, polls on company pages. Is the workflow kind of the same? And I think specifically the deviation there would be, if the company is the publisher, who then goes back and engages personally with the person? How do you make that feel appropriate?
I have taken, I've used the principal, if it's the CEO, managing partner, whoever it is, because they usually have the bigger network, unless you have Monty and you got the 12,000 followers. But I'll go from the profile, and then I'll share that link to the company page, and then alert the employees to attract people to participate in the poll. And it goes back to the profile of the individual, because then the individual can ideally reach out. It's a little less salesy. And you don't want a company reaching out to you. I mean, you could, but it's,
From Jessica's asking if you're going to be using the poll comments as a tool for creating content, should you ask permission for the person that publicly commented to quote it in your material?
If you're going to direct quote it, sure. I would always ask permission, but I would also use it as an opportunity to engage with that person. So if you're not connected with them, say, hey, loved what you said about blah, 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 let's connect. And then you can have a conversation. If you are connected with them, again, hey, Monty, I love what you said about that. Can I quote you? So you always ask permission, or you just use it as a, the questions that my clients ask me, I use that as ideas for content. So you take that as a prompt and then you make it your own.
Patricia asks if you have any advice on how to, since you have a very limited character count on poll answers, any advice on how you can keep it short and clear and relevant?
Yeah, that's where you use the caption section above, which I think you have like 1,500 characters. Don't use all that, but that's where you can tease it out a little bit more. And then, in your poll, when you're doing the question, you got to say read above first. Got to make that real clear. And I think I did that in one of the polls that I have. And that's where you can go into a little bit more detail and then surmise the responses with just the 30 characters. Yeah, that's the hardest part, because I got my clients, they're really excited about it, but then it's like, guys, we got to get this down to less than 30 characters to get it in there. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming on this. This is really wonderful. Wonderful.
Awesome, Judy. Awesome.
Judy, thank you. If you have not connected with Judy, her profile is in the email that went out this morning. So please give her a connect and say thanks.